For the nearly 40% of the UK population who suffer from hay fever, June and the beginning of July is the peak time for their troublesome symptoms. Most of the pollen in the UK atmosphere actually comes from grass or hay, which pollinates in June, and this is on top of the pollen which has already been released from weeds and trees. There are concerns that with changes in the climate, plants are going to pollinate earlier and for longer, so that there'll be more pollen in the atmosphere than in previous years. Most health sites advise staying at home with the windows and doors closed, but this is not very practical advice for most people. The main focus of medical treatments for hay fever is actually to take an antihistamine, which do help to reduce the runny nose and the blocked nose. But they don't address the underlying root cause of why people are allergic to pollen, and they do have side effects. Even the modern non-sedatory forms can cause some sleepiness, a dry mouth, and there are concerns for long-term health. Having poor gut health does increase the probability of having more severe hay fever symptoms. Having poor gut health correlates with a less efficient immune system, so you're more likely to catch an infection, but at the same time you're more likely to overreact to antigens in our environment, including pollen. People with poor gut health also have lower levels of vitamin D, which is also being linked to worse hay fever symptoms, and they have higher level of inflammation. So the first important strategy is to try to improve and look after our gut health by eating less processed sugar, exercising more, eating more bacteria-rich foods such as kefir, kimchi, and eating more prebiotic foods such as mushrooms, artichokes, etc. Many people in the UK may find this diet difficult to sustain. In that case, the use of a probiotic supplement may have a role. There are a number of studies which show that people who take probiotics for 10 to 12 weeks over the summer will have reduced hay fever symptoms. If considering taking a probiotic, however, make sure they contain mainly lactobacillus and non-histamine secreting, such as in Your Gut Plus, which also has a built-in prebiotic and vitamin D. Further studies are emerging which show that people who have a high intake of phytochemical rich foods have lower hay fever symptoms. Now, phytochemicals are found naturally in plants, which give them their colour, their taste and their smell, and they have numerous health benefits, including reducing inflammation and improving the immunity. On top of a healthy diet, there have been some studies which show that boosting the intake of phytochemicals with a capsule can further reduce hay fever symptoms. If you're thinking of boosting your levels of phytochemicals with a capsule, consider one such as Your Phyto, which is being used in a national study, because you have the reassurance it's shown some degree of effectiveness and has a high safety profile. One practical strategy to reduce the amount of pollen in your nasal cavity is using a nasal douche. Rinsing the nasal cavities 2 or 3 times a day not only reduces the amount of pollen, it actually removes some of the excess mucus and clears the airways. Several studies have shown it significantly reduces hay fever symptoms. It's not the most glamorous of habits, but I've tried this myself and it certainly does help. There are a number of apparatuses available commercially, but the one featured in the video called Rhin-E stands out as it doesn't require batteries or refills, and speaking from experience, it has just the right amount of saline and power to wash out the nose. With good equipment and practice, nasal douching is actually quite straightforward. However, when you first start, it may be useful to get help from a friend who's done it before.